Substitution of Plato for the scholastic Aristotle was hastened by contact with Byzantine scholarship already at the Council of Ferrara, 1438, which nominally united the Eastern and Western churches. There was a debate in which the Byzantines maintained the superiority of Plato to Aristotle. Gemistus Plato, an ardent Greek Platonist of doubtful orthodoxy, did much to promote Platonism in Italy. So did Bessarion, a Greek who became a cardinal. Cosimo and Lorenzo de' Medici were both addicted to Plato. Cosimo founded and Lorenzo continued the Florentine Academy, which was largely devoted to the study of Plato. Cosimo died listening to one of Plato's dialogues. The humanists of the time, however, were too busy acquiring knowledge of antiquity to be able to produce anything original in philosophy. The Renaissance was not a popular movement, it was a movement of a small number of scholars and artists, encouraged by liberal patrons, especially the Medici and the humanist popes. But for these patrons, it might have had very much less success. Petrarch and Boccaccio in the 14th century belonged mentally to the Renaissance, but owing to the different political conditions of the time, their immediate influence was less than that of the 15th century humanists. The attitude of Renaissance scholars to the church is difficult to characterize simply. Some were avowed freethinkers, though even these usually received extreme unction, making peace with the church when they felt death approaching. Most of them were impressed by the weakness of contemporary popes, but were nevertheless glad to be employed by them. Guicciardini, the historian, wrote in 1529, "No man is more disgusted than I am with the ambition, the avarice, and the profligacy of the prize, not only because each of these vices is hateful in itself, but because each and all of them are most unbecoming in those who declare themselves to be men in special relations with God, and also because their vices so opposed to one another that they can only coexist in very singular natures. Nevertheless, my position at the court of several popes forced me to desire their greatness for the sake of my own interest. But had it not been for this, I should have loved Martin Luther as myself, not in order to free myself from the laws which Christianity, as generally understood and explained, lays upon us, but in order to see this swarm of scoundrels put back into their proper place, so that they may be forced to live either without vices or without power. This is delightfully frank and shows clearly why the humanists could not inaugurate a reformation. Moreover, most of them saw no halfway house between orthodoxy and free thought. Such a position as Luther's was impossible for them because they no longer had the medieval feeling for the subtleties of theology. Masuccio, after describing the weakness of monks and nuns and friars, says the best punishment for them would be for God to abolish purgatory. They would then receive no more alms and would be forced to go back to their space. But it does not occur to him, as to Luther, to deny purgatory while retaining most of the Catholic faith. The wealth of Rome depended only in small part upon the revenues obtained from the papal dominions. In the main, it was a tribute drawn from the whole Catholic world by means of a theological system which maintained that the popes held the keys of heaven. An Italian who effectively questioned this system risked the impoverishment of Italy and the loss of the position in the Western world. Consequently, Italian unorthodoxy in the Renaissance was purely intellectual and did not lead to schism or to any attempt to create a popular movement away from the church. The only exception, and that a very partial one, was Savonarola, who belonged mentally to the Middle Ages. Most of the humanists retained such superstitious beliefs as had found support in antiquity. Magic and witchcraft might be wicked, but were not thought impossible. Innocent VIII in 1484 issued a bull against witchcraft, which led to an appalling persecution of witches in Germany and elsewhere. Astrology was prized especially by freethinkers. It acquired a vogue which it had not had since ancient times. The first effect of emancipation from the church was not to make men think rationally, but to open their minds to every sort of antique nonsense. Morally, the first effect of emancipation was equally disastrous. The old moral rules ceased to be respected. Most of the rulers of states had acquired their position by treachery and retained it by ruthless cruelty. When cardinals were invited to dine at the coronation of a pope, they brought their own wine and their own cup-bearer for fear of poison. Except Savonarola, hardly any Italian of the period risked anything for a public object. The evils of papal corruption were obvious, but nothing was done about them. The desirability of Italian unity was evident, but the rulers were incapable of combination. The danger of foreign domination was imminent, yet every Italian ruler was prepared to invoke the aid of any foreign power, even the Turk, in any dispute with any other Italian ruler. I cannot think of any crime except the destruction of ancient manuscripts, of which the men of the Renaissance were not frequently guilty. Outside the sphere of morals, the Renaissance had great merits. In architecture, painting, and poetry, it has remained renowned. It produced very great men such as Leonardo, Michelangelo, and Machiavelli. It liberated educated men from the narrowness of medieval culture, and even while still a slave to the worship of antiquity, it made scholars aware that a variety of opinions had been held by reputable authorities on almost every subject. By reviving the knowledge of the Greek world, it created a mental atmosphere in which it was again possible to rival Hellenic achievements, and in which individual genius and could flourish with a freedom unknown since the time of Alexander. The political conditions of the Renaissance favored individual development but were unstable. The instability and the individualism were closely connected, as in ancient Greece. A stable social system is necessary, but every stable system hitherto devised has hampered the development of exceptional artistic or intellectual merit. How much murder and anarchy are we prepared to endure for the sake of great achievements such as those of the Renaissance? In the past, a great deal. In our own time, much less. No solution of this problem has hitherto between been found, although increase of social organization is making it continually more important. And then comes our uncle Machiavelli.